Welcome everyone to a CB3 planning this meeting, and we're gonna start with the roll call.
Not very first, it's the name declaration.
The Maris, please. Here, present. John. Ollie. Tanya, Faith. She's in a room, I'm not sure if she's, comfortable. I think she's gonna be, honest here. Allison, Iris, what's it about there? Michelle, Thompson, Kathy, not here. Love. Jake, my colleagues, they take it. Sandra, not here. Saturday, Saturday. Speak up, guys. Yeah. You can see it, student live. That's from us, right? Present. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's okay, that's. Thank you, my name is Amanda Schmidt. Chairman of planning. Thank you all for coming. We're going to start today with a presentation of the new policy project. I'm not sure what the students see how they're not. But the name of the says. That's just speaking. Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. Will, there's Will. There's muted. Will, there's muted.
Hello?
Yes, are you presenting on behalf of the Economy Project tonight?
Yes, yeah, I'm presenting on behalf of New Economy Project on COPA.
All right, great, so, thanks for being here, before
Thank
we.
you.
Please say your name, where you're from, and what's tonight's presentation is about, for everyone from the audience, and then, just so that you know the process. After you are done, the committee gets to ask questions, after the committee asks questions, the public gets to ask questions. Right? So just to let you know, we asked them to come present. So,
Sorry, you broke up at the end there. You want me to go ahead?
you can begin, and thank you so much for being here and giving us information about.
Okay, great.
You still can't hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. Okay. Oh, I sent a request to share
Okay.
screen.
Slide.
Just a minute. Okay. You should be able to share your screen now. No? Yep.
All right, great. Thank you all so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, is there a question? Should I begin?
You're ready to begin.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much for the invitation. My name is Will Spizak. I'm a senior policy strategist at New Economy Project. For folks who don't know, New Economy Project is a citywide organization. We've been around for about 30 years, and we advocate for a new economy that works for all New Yorkers based on principles of economic and racial justice, cooperation, and ecological sustainability. We do our work primarily through coalition building, and we advocate for the community wealth building and collective ownership of neighborhood assets, including community ownership of housing through community land trusts. So we coordinate and are founders of the citywide coalition of community land trusts, or CLTs, called NICELY, or the New York City Community Land Initiative. And we have been, as a coalition, advocating for this bill, the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, Intro 905, for several years. And we're really excited about where the bill is right now and the opportunity to pass it. And we look forward to engaging you and hopefully getting all of your support behind passing the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. So I will go through a brief presentation of what COPA is, how it works, and hopefully answer all of your questions. So really quickly, overview of what COPA is. COPA is a tool that would give community land trusts and other mission-driven nonprofits a first opportunity to purchase certain distressed and multifamily buildings when the landlord decides to sell them. It's modeled on other legislation from cities like San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and others that have been able to utilize COPA in their own cities. And we have modeled our legislation after their lessons, both their successes and their challenges, to hopefully build the best possible version of COPA. And it helps to stabilize buildings in the greatest need of preservation, expanding the supply of permanently affordable, community-controlled, and tenant-controlled housing. It does this by leveling the playing field in the multifamily housing market through two new tools. One is the right of first opportunity to purchase, which I'll talk a little bit more about momentarily. But essentially what that does is it gives the qualified buyers, a group of organizations that are pre-selected and vetted by the City of New York, the first opportunity to make an offer when certain distressed or at-risk buildings, and I'll define what that is momentarily, go up for sale. And the right of first refusal, which is an opportunity to match a bid in the event that the seller rejects the initial offer and goes to a third party buyer on the market. It would give our qualified entities an opportunity to match that offer. So one thing to note early on is that the seller always gets the price that they want. It never forces anybody to sell a building they don't want to, and it never forces anyone to accept a price that they don't want to. And it only applies to covered properties when they decide to sell. So it can never force a sale. It only applies to landlords of covered properties when they decide to make a sale. So I won't go into much detail on the history, but I always think it's important to just highlight that this has been a very long campaign. We have introduced this legislation with council member partners 3 times since 2020. Most recently, Councilmember Sandy Nurse in Brooklyn has assumed prime sponsorship. And since partnering with Councilmember Nurse, we have gone on a listening tour, a community building tour, where we have listened to all different stakeholders and partners, including different nonprofits like CDCs, advocacy groups. We've listened to HPD, lenders, as well as industry lobbyists, folks like REBNY and SPONY, and groups who typically don't align with our values, but we have taken their feedback and incorporated quite a lot of it into the legislation. We've done a number of rallies, council member outreach days, and ultimately that led to us passing COPA last year. Unfortunately, Eric Adams did veto it, and the council did not decide to override the veto. So here we are in, this is slightly out of date, this is January to July now, and we've been working to revise the bill. It was reintroduced, and we've already achieved a majority of the city council co-sponsoring it. In less than a week of it being reintroduced, we had a majority of the council co-sponsoring. And I'll also note that Mayor Mamdani has included COPA as just one of 2 legislative priorities in his housing plan. So we have broad support across communities, across city council, and the administration. And as I mentioned, the bill has gone through a number of revisions. So we wanted to really highlight what changes have been made to the bill and how does it work now? So when the bill was originally envisioned, it was based off of the San Francisco bill, which meant we borrowed their language, which said that all buildings, 3 units and more, would be covered by COPA. Now in New York City, we are obviously much, much bigger than San Francisco, and there's a lot more nuance that we wanted to bake into this bill. So we made a number of changes. So we no longer have a bill that applies to all 3 units or up buildings. It only applies to multifamily buildings of 4 units or more that meet one of the following criteria. So the first criteria is it's part of one of HPD's enforcement programs. So these are buildings that have been in chronic distress, have been flagged by HPD as a concern, and have been entered into one of their programs. So if they are in one of these programs for at least 1 year, and then the landlord decides to sell, they would be covered by the COPA process. Additionally, if the building has been denied a certificate of no harassment in the previous year, meaning that the landlord had been found guilty of harassing tenants, it would be covered by COPA. If it is eligible for the third-party transfer program, or what will become Safer Homes program, it would be covered by COPA. And additionally, if there has been 3 or more open B or C violations per unit issued within the previous 3 years and open for 60 plus days, it would be covered by COPA. So what this last part here seeks to cover are buildings that have been moderately distressed, but for a very long time. So buildings that are like frequently flagged as a challenge for HPD, but not at the level of distress that would have them entered into the AEP program or something along those lines. And then lastly, buildings that have an expiring affordability restriction that is expiring in the next 2 years with 100 units or less would be covered by COPA. And this was really important for us to include because we've seen so many buildings that are affordable housing, but their regulatory agreement with the city is expiring. And that's usually an opportunity for speculators to come and offer maybe an over-leveraged buyout of the building with the prospect of that affordability expiring and then being able to flip those units for higher rents in the coming year. So we wanted to make sure that we were creating as many opportunities as possible to preserve affordable housing when there is going to be a turnover from one regulatory agreement to none. So we see this as a really great inflection point where COPA could be a valuable tool for preserving those affordable housing units. There are a number of exemptions that I think are worth highlighting. So first of all 1 to 3 family homes and any owner-occupied building with 5 units or less is exempt from COPA, regardless of if it's in AEP or if it's on the TPT list or what have you. So there's unfortunately been a lot of disinformation about how COPA works. And one of the unfortunate myths that have been spread on social media is that the city is coming to take your house or something along those lines, which is categorically false. There is no way whatsoever that a owner-occupied property like this would be included in COPA. And again, COPA doesn't force anyone to sell. It doesn't take a home from anyone. It gives the landlord the asking price that they want, and they're free to reject an offer. Transfers between family members are exempt. Refinance properties where ownership doesn't change, but maybe the name of the LLC does, that is exempt. Certain tax credit properties like J51, it does not qualify building for COPA, and all expiring 421A properties are exempt. So 421A does not qualify building as a COPA covered. And lastly, owners that are facing a financial hardship, even if they do qualify for COPA, could apply for a hardship exemption, and they won't have to abide by the COPA timeline. So what does this universe look like? With all of these considerations in place, the COPA universe of covered buildings is actually very small compared to what the size of the city overall. So from that expiring affordability category, we find that there are about 300 or so properties that would be covered by COPA each year, not sold, but covered. So if they were to sell, they would go through the COPA process. For the violations that I mentioned, the 3 or more B or C violations per unit, and I need to emphasize per unit because sometimes that gets left out. So for example, if it's a 10-unit building, they need to have 30 B or C violations or more for an average, daily average over 365 days. So when we calculated that, we found that about 1,900 annually would be covered. Again, not sold, but covered by that criteria. And then lastly, the HPD enforcement programs we mentioned, about 800 or so buildings. And that is being very conservative with the estimate, or rather the opposite, because we're capturing a lot of buildings that may actually be exempt because we weren't able to verify if they're owner occupied properties or something like that. So this is probably a larger estimate than what the reality would be, but this was our best guess with the available data. So when we looked at the data over the last couple of years, we find again that it's a relatively small universe. So of those buildings that I just mentioned, only about 300 COPA covered properties are sold each year, which represents less than 1%, about 0.5% of all real estate transactions in New York City. However, even though that's a very small number of real estate transactions, the impact could be transformational. Because when you look at those 300 properties, they cover about 50,000 affordable housing units. That's 50,000 families that could maintain or preserve their affordable housing, 50,000 units that could potentially be saved from the speculative market. And then the COPA universe is small but strategic, and that's something that we're constantly saying. It's small but strategic. It's a small number of properties, but it applies to those most at risk of us seeing affordable housing units being lost to the speculative market. So it makes a lot of sense from our perspective that we have this very tailored and honed program that focuses on these at-risk buildings that could have tremendous impact for our communities and our neighborhoods. And this is just a map that we created that shows where these properties are. As you can see, there's a lot in the Bronx, Uptown, Brooklyn, East Brooklyn, as well as a number in the Lower East Side and Lower Manhattan. So what does the timeline of COPA look like? So this is really where the rubber meets the road, how COPA works. So when a landlord decides that they want to sell, if they're covered by COPA, if they're one of those properties that we mentioned, the landlord then would submit a statement to HPD and to all of the pre-certified qualified entities saying that I am interested in selling my building. Here's some information about my building. It's 30 units or what have you. This is my asking price, something like that. The qualified entities then have 20 days to submit a statement of interest. So they'll review the catchment area, the details, the asking price, and they'll decide if they want to submit a statement of interest. If no qualified entity submits a statement of interest, the landlord is then free to go straight to the private market and sell their building to anyone that they want. So that we believe in most cases will be the case, that in most situations, there may not be a qualified entity that is interested in the building, so it may just go to the market. However, if the qualified entity is interested, they submit that statement of interest, they then get 70 days to put together an offer. So that gives them the time to do their due diligence, look at the building, look at the rent rolls, put the financing together. If you're familiar with New York real estate, that's actually not a lot of time to put together an offer. But it is a timeline that we're willing to work with, and actually is significantly shorter than what the original bill had. The original bill had a total of 180 days, so we cut that in half. So after the offer is made, just the seller then has 10 days to respond, which is pretty normal in turnaround for a seller to respond to an offer. If the offer is accepted, the seller and the buyer enter into a contract period within 30 days. If for some reason the landlord rejects the offer, they are then free to go to the market and seek another offer. However, the organization that put in that first offer that was rejected does have 15 days after the seller finds another offer to match it. And this is really important because this is what gives COPA its teeth, right? It's very easy to just reject any offer, that comes from a qualified buyer and then go to the open market. But what we wanted to do is to make sure that we can match term for term. And if we can, then the qualified buyer has the right of first refusal to purchase that building. So the landlord, again, always gets the exact terms that they're asking for or that they could get in the third party market. But it would go to an organization that is certified preservation specialist. And this just again highlights how much we have actually cut that timeline down over several rounds of negotiation with the city and other stakeholders that have weighed in on the process. So who are these qualified entities? That's a question we often get. So the original bill was a lot vaguer when we first wrote it. It was just any qualified nonprofit purchaser. And we looked to HPD to help define what that is. Since then, we've really fleshed out that part of the legislation. So we now have a very clear definition that HPD will certify vetted nonprofits, similar to the preservation buyers list that they put together. But they are going to be opening up the preservation buyers lists for additional organizations to apply. But those organizations have to demonstrate a mission, a commitment, and the financial capacity to take on affordable housing projects. In addition to the nonprofits that have been approved by the city, joint ventures between nonprofits that have been certified by the city and other partners, including for-profits, could be potential preservation buyers. But the certified nonprofit has to be the majority stakeholder. So it has to be the controlling interest in any project. And that includes partnering with community land trusts, which is possible. But if the CLT itself is not a certified qualified buyer, it would have to be the minority stakeholder. So just one of the questions we often get is, well, where does the money come from for this? Which is a good question, and something we put a lot of thought into. So this is not baked into the legislation because we couldn't do that. That's not how the legislation is designed. But there are a number of tools that we've already identified and conversations we're already having to ensure that there will be financing tools at the qualified entity's disposal, including existing programs like HCR's preservation funding, HPD's programs like Neighborhood Pillars, our home cooperative conversion program, which is newly announced by the administration in the housing plan, as well as other term sheets that HPD and HCR use. But there are other tools like the New York City Acquisition Fund, which is currently capitalized at $250 million. A number of the CDFIs and community development credit unions in the area, including the Lower East Side People's Federal Credit Union, one of the largest investors in the HDFC market in New York, as well as our conversations we're having with CRA funds, with banks that are interested in doing preservation deals, as well as foundations and private donors. So foundations are increasingly interested in doing program-related investments or PRIs to support affordable housing. And they're very interested in supporting COPA acquisitions in particular. So we are building out a bench of foundations, organizations, and banks and community lenders that are interested in supporting once we get off the ground. I won't belabor too many of the examples, but if folks want in the questions in the Q&A, I could go into more detail. But we have a number of examples of case studies of buildings that have kind of been missed opportunities where COPA would be extremely helpful. And just I'll highlight the first one because it's close to home here on East 14th Street, where there's been a building that would certainly qualify under COPA. It would qualify based on the B and C violation count. It's been notoriously owned by the Old Hab Shalom organization, and it was bought and sold a number of times out from underneath the tenants and community groups that had been working on the organizing the tenants and interest in acquiring the building. Currently, there's a CLT, an MWBE developer that's partnering on potentially acquiring the building. But one of the issues that we continue to hear from them is the lack of transparency with the seller. So first of all, there have been missed opportunities when it was purchased by McGuire Capital. And then there's continued, negotiations where the seller continues to say that they have other offers to try and bait the CLT and the MWBE partners into offering more money. If COPA existed, right, and they got a third-party offer, they would have to disclose the terms of that offer and give the CLT and the MWBE partner the right of first refusal, meaning the opportunity to match those term for term. So if you're a fan of transparency, you should be a fan of COPA, because COPA provides transparency to the sale of affordable housing. We have other case studies, which I could go into more detail if that's of interest, but I'll skip these momentarily and just highlight one example of what's possible, and that's the 248 Arlington example of East New York Community Land Trust, which was able to, as a brand new community grassroots organization, acquire a building from a negligent landlord in Brooklyn. And this is the kind of example of a property acquisition that we want to emulate and continue to expand with COPA as a tool that can help bring more landlords to the table and expedite these kind of sales. So I will stop there and see if there are any additional questions. And thank you all so much for listening.
Great, thank you. Very informative. Do you have any questions from anyone else? Okay, so sorry, David.
Hi, thank you for taking us time to send this along. I have a question in regards to qualified buyers. I wanted to know who gets these qualified buyers, who's extended their note.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think there was breaking up a little bit, but I think the question was about qualified buyers and who would be considered a qualified buyer. Is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Okay, great. Yeah, so the qualified buyers list would be put together by HPD. So they would put out an RFP that nonprofit organizations can apply to. And there are certain criteria that they have to meet. The criteria being that they have to have a demonstrated commitment to community affordable housing, and the financial and organizational capacity to acquire affordable housing projects. So with that in mind, there's quite a number of nonprofit organizations that would meet that criteria, many of whom are kind of the traditional CDCs that have been doing a lot of work in New York City for a very long time. It's in my experience that everyone has a nonprofit housing provider that they like and has one that they don't like. So, that's just kind of the nature of New York city politics and whatnot. But in addition to the CDCs, and I would invite folks to, check out maybe ANHD as an example of where you can find a list of those organizations, because most of them are members of the ANHD trade group. There's also additional organizations that would apply and likely qualify, including groups like the Cooper Square Community Land Trust, This Land Is Ours Community Land Trust, and others that typically aren't on the preservation buyers list, the more traditional one that HPD puts together, but would meet this criteria. So I could send along, if it's helpful, a more thorough list of groups that have been qualified preservation buyers in the past, which is likely a good proxy of the list of groups that would qualify as qualified entities, as well as the list of community land trusts that are members of Nicely, which will likely be a number of them would qualify as well.
I still looking for follow on that. If there could be a number of limits to the amount of qualified buyers that HPD will choose to work with. So for example, there are other city agencies where they have pre-selected bidders and they only work with one of those 4 or 5, however many it is. So is there a limit amount of qualified bidders that HPD can?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So there is no limit to how many can be qualified. The preservation buyers list that HPD has used in the past for their programs has had about 30 organizations on it. So that's probably a good proxy of how many groups maybe more or less would be qualified. And then on top of that, I think what is really important for the coalition was that we know that a lot of affordable housing deals are done as joint ventures and partnerships. So there's a number of kind of collaborations that can happen. So because we have opened up the preservation or the qualified entity list to include joint ventures, it kind of creates additional opportunities beyond the just the kind of 30 or so that would be directly qualified. It would create opportunities for smaller nonprofits that are trying to build up a portfolio of affordable housing projects to join as a maybe like a minority partner in a joint venture. And then that creates a step ladder for them to eventually become qualified entities of their own. So for our coalition, which is includes a lot of community land trusts, including these kind of smaller startup groups, that was really important that we were able to create that ladder to create more more qualified entities through that process.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is it possible that we would get 2 qualified nonprofits bidding against each other?
Yeah.
I mean, was it that square CLT and this is our latest scale team?
Yes. Yeah, so it is possible that more than one qualified entity could be interested in the same project. The group that gets the right of first refusal is only the group that submits their offer first. So that's the way that the bill is written. So it does kind of narrow down who has the advantage based on first in time, essentially. But if there is a building that is covered by COPA and up for sale, what we would try and do as kind of a movement is coordinate between organizations that are in that catchment area and interested in the building. This is kind of one of the benefits of doing coalition work. So that maybe there could be a partnership that's formed, or there could be a conversation about who's best positioned to be able to make an offer and steward that property. But yeah, in a hypothetical situation, there could be a potential where 2 qualified entities maybe are both interested and don't want to partner and could put in separate offers.
So it sounds like this is going to go through legislative law. And I was looking at the map, it looked like there were a number of potential or eligible properties in community board 3. You actually have a number for community board 3?
I do not have that number handy, but I can pull that data if that's helpful, and I could share that by email. And I could actually share the exact addresses. So maybe you guys are familiar with the properties.
That would be really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
I'm still just going to say a little bit skeptical how much we're actually going to end up. We'll see what, it's no downside to trying.
Yeah, it's one of the tricky things about COPA is, because we did create this more narrow universe of properties that, some districts are looking at, how many properties are in their area and saying like, will this be transformational here, or will this be small? And what we're hoping for is that, we will create a proof of concept and, maybe, continue to, preserve affordable housing with this tool, but understand that it's one tool in the toolbox, right? So we're gonna always need kind of the other tools at our disposal to do affordable housing preservation, but this does give us kind of a foot in the door to preserve some of those most at-risk buildings, which, as you mentioned, there are definitely a number in Community Board 3. So we would definitely want to see some of those units preserved for the long haul.
All right, thank you so much. I don't think
Yeah.
there are other people with questions, so at this point, given the time, well, it's what I appreciate, how much time you're giving us and how thorough you're being. I'm gonna ask you to try to limit your responsibility, still have 2 more items to go.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Out of the side. So we still have a couple questions, please don't leave yet. Could you, would never ask people online, I will when the meeting's done. So, July? All right, can you hear me ever? No.
Yes.
I have a few questions, but I hear the name preservation and I think of the trust, right? And I'm not sure if you're aware of the preservation trust.
Yes.
So-
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, do you know if they're one of your?
The qualified entities.
Yes.
Yeah, great question. No, so the Preservation Trust is not associated with COPA. They would not qualify as a qualified entity because they work in NYCHA properties, and that those would not qualify under COPA.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, do we have any questions? No question on? Yeah, also good question. Oh, sorry.
Alright, I wanna ask a quick question, I don't know if this was mentioned before, if this step path, when, like, what will be the timeline? Like, when
When do you think this will be passed? What will be the timeline of once? When do you think it'll be passed and once it's passed,
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So we're hoping to have a hearing, which will be, I think, our 3rd or 4th hearing on COPA on September 9th. Now the date's not set on the calendar yet, but we're being told it will be early September. So after the hearing, we hope that the bill comes up for a vote very shortly after in the fall. Like I said, we have the votes to pass it, and we have a mayor who's willing to sign it. So once it's passed into law, which will hopefully be this fall, it gives HPD and the administration 1 year to set up the infrastructure to implement it, which is very gracious, from a legislative standpoint. So the bill would actually take effect 1 year from signing. So it would be fall of 2027 that it would actually start being implemented.
So, do we have any folks online? Do we have any raised hands, Susan? No, all right, all right, does anyone from the audience wish to make any comments or ask a question? All right, great, so thank you again for coming, for being with us online. And for sharing this information with us. Yeah. And
Thank you.
if you send us the addresses, that would be really helpful.
Yes.
When you,
Well-
if you know the building, the number of properties, say that.
Yes, definitely.
Great, right.
All right, great.
Say hi.
Thank you.
People.
Will do. Bye. Thank you.
All right, bye. All right, so we're gonna, they're on, okay. So we're having an informational presentation on the Universal Affordability Program. And its application at 120 Essex Street. So is it the developer that's here?
Yes, developer and one of the architects.
This is, I suppose, is this you? Charles, is that your name?
Yep, hi, nice to meet you.
Charles, okay, do you have a presentation that you need to share?
Yes.
Okay, do you wanna have him share it, so do you have a handy, you can give you permission to share it from your screen?
Yeah, Saurabh, you can share it, please.
Is
Yes.
there
Yes,
gonna be recognition now? Business setting?
I think they might.
There's
They're
also
good.
one,
They're good.
he asked for be promoted.
No, we don't want to promote him.
He said he's a presenter.
Herman's a presenter.
This or not?
Okay, everyone can see the,
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
Herman says he's a presenter.
Sorry, Herman.
I
If you
think
can
he's
hear.
Trying to be, probably promoted to a panelist.
He had said
I don't know why.
he's presenting.
No, he said I'm present. Like,
Oh,
No, you
right.
have, can you
I know,
explain
I know.
Damaris?
Give me 1 second, Charles.
You have to be
I
in
just
person.
want to,
Okay,
while there is a hybrid option available for.
Here, maybe the battery might be dead. Here, Damaris,
It's dying, that's why.
I'll put a new battery in.
Alright, perfect, alright. Just very quickly, Charles, give me 1 second before we begin with the proposal. I just want to alert folks that may be joining us online. That the meeting itself is a hybrid meeting, but that is for the public. If you are a committee member, you must be here in person in order to be counted as a person. If you are not here in person, then you shouldn't be absent. That's all I'm gonna say about that now, so that we can resume the meeting. So back to you, Charles, thank you for being here.
Yep.
And, please take it away. About 10 minutes is good?
yeah, that should be fine. Yeah, 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, so hi, my name's Charlie Parenti. I am representing BFC Partners Development. BFC is one of the, or is the managing member of the development entity for 100 Essex Street. So 100 Essex it's located on the northeast corner of Delancey and Essex Street, and is the site of the old Essex Market building, which has been vacant for some time. This is actually one of the last sites of the larger New York City Economic Development Corp. Seward Park Essex Crossing approved master plan. This has started about 13 years ago. And Essex Crossing has been kind of constructed in phases over those past 13 years. So so this is technically Site 9, which is one of the last buildings to go up here. The Generally speaking, 100 Essex is going to include a residential component, a ground floor commercial component, and I think notably we're also going to incorporate sort of an enlargement of the MTA Delancey Street station, which will eventually provide ADA accessibility for that station. The residential side, we have 99 total units, of which 26 will be affordable. The affordable units will have a comparable, layout, square footage, amenity package to the market rate units. It's going to be providing, as this says, an identical resident experience. The project team, as I mentioned, so I represent BFC Partners Development, New York City-based real estate development firm. We specialize in affordable housing, mixed income residential communities, mixed-use urban development. The company was founded in the mid-1980s. We've developed or preserved over 11,000 units. And some of the, besides Essex Crossing, some of our notable projects include Bedford Union Armory, Empire Outlets, and City Point here in Brooklyn. And joining me today is Saurabh Gunka from S9 Architecture. S9, also New York City based, specializes in multifamily and mixed use developments, and they've completed or have in design over 10,000 residential units. So a little bit about the project site. We can skip to the next page. So just kind of giving you some viewpoints of the site as it is right now. Kind of difficult to see, but the top right photo next to the Ritchie's building is the existing Essex Market building. That's that northeast corner of Delancey and Essex. It's a single-story building. that you can kind of see on the bottom left-hand image. And as I mentioned, the building has been vacant for a certain amount of years now. As the market actually moved across the street into one of the newer Essex Crossing buildings. Next slide. The site itself, as you see here, is situated along Essex Street and runs basically along the entire length of Essex from Delancey to Rivington. It's about 20,840 square feet. I guess in relation to the other Essex buildings, you could see the other sites located just below on the south side of Delancey. You see site 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 there. Site 8 and site 5 are above us, just north of Rivington. Next slide. This is sort of a massing of the building. The pink area kind of shows you the commercial spaces, which run about 15,000 square feet on the ground floor. The building itself is going to be 10 stories, approximately 115 feet tall. And jumping to the residential units, like I had said, we have 99 total units, 26 affordable, and the breakout in unit mix is 15 studios, 35 ones, 35 twos, and 14 three-bedroom apartments. Amenities, as you can see, we're providing in-unit laundry, fitness, children's playroom, bike room, pet spa, co-working lounge, rooftop deck, golf simulator, kind of various amenities for this project. The residential entrance to the building is going to be situated sort of in the center part of Essex, as you see there. And jumping back, I guess, to commercial, there's going to be sort of like a primary corner retail location right there. And then two kind of centered commercial spaces along Essex, and then up north along Rivington and Essex, you'll have your fourth commercial space. On the residential affordability, the building, as you had mentioned before, we're going to be, this was a UAP project, so we've submitted the UAP application with HPD. However, we are ultimately bound to kind of a greater amount of affordability per our agreement with EDC. So per that agreement, we have 26 total affordable units in this building, permanently affordable. The UAP program is actually 24 of those 26, and those average 60% AMI household income. And then, separately to that, we'll be applying for the 45X tax abatement program. Specifically on the 24 UAP units, 50% of those are going to be 2 bedrooms or larger, and we do not have more than 25% as studios, which is in line with the UAP requirements. And as I previously mentioned, affordable market rates can have the same finishes, same building entrance, access to the same amenity package, overall a very, comparable, similar experience. The building's been designed with equity in mind, so the experience will be the same. I think next slide. One of what I mentioned earlier, if you can jump to the next slide. What I mentioned earlier is the MTA component. So if some of you are familiar with the existing building, there is along Essex an escalator, a very narrow, small escalator that exits the Delancey Street station onto Essex. As part of this project, we're working with MTA to expand their existing easement they have on the property. So we're going to be providing larger space at the first floor and subgrade levels to the MTA. We'll build that space out, and then ultimately MTA will come in to fit it out with an elevator, providing that ADA accessibility. And where along that Essex Street entrance, you'll see there'll be a new stairway as well as an enlarged escalator right there. So that a very notable, improvement for the community, as the station right now is not accessible. So that is going to be one of the sort of the, post demo, one of the primary things that we'll be jumping into. And the general kind of schedule overview is, we're looking to close and start construction this fall. Overall project, given the complexity of the MTA work, it's going to run into 2029. But we plan to hand over to MTA that easement volume space for their fit out towards the end of 2027, and then it kind of goes into the MTA's court to actually have the equipment installed and eventually open that space up. So that kind of provides sort of an overview of the project, and I'll hand it off to Sarab, who can provide some insight into overall design aspects.
Charlie, did you want to talk about the key milestones?
Yeah, I mean, as I'd mentioned, I mean, we're looking to kick off construction in the fall of this year. There'll be, obviously demolition of the existing building, excavation, the MTA work, which, like I said, that'll be handed over to MTA towards the end of 27. We're estimating. And then at that point, MTA takes that box, that structure, and installs their escalator and elevator and performs their fit out, and then breaks through to connect to their station. But overall construction completion for the main building, we're targeting fall of 2029.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sarab Goenka. I represent S9 Architecture. We're the designers, architects, and interior designer on this wonderful project. And I'm gonna just take a few minutes to.
So we want to see if we can raise the volume of them. Okay, so can you see for us? Sarah, can you speak for us?
I can hear you guys. Yes.
Okay, that's great. That's good. Thank you. What?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just try to speak as loudly as you can, okay? We appreciate it. It's a little hard to hear on our end.
Okay. Yeah, I will speak louder. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So I'm gonna just walk you all through the our design of the project, how it came to be, and sort of the things we studied in arriving to the design that you see on the screen. So, our starting point was exploring the unique and the vivid character of the Lower East Side neighborhood. Obviously, one thing that sets apart Lower East Side from rest of Manhattan is the historic tenement buildings all around the neighborhood, and the rustic brick character, the metal ornamentation, whether it's created by the fire escapes on the exterior or the awnings at the cornices at the top of the building. The street level itself has a very, very vibrant character with street art, neon signs, and just the overall vibe of the neighborhood is high energy and brings in a very creative spirit. So we use that as an inspiration and wanted to make sure we design a building that sort of fits into the neighborhood it's being placed in. We also looked at some of the more recent developments along Delancey Street. So Delancey Street obviously is a major artery, and in recent times there have been a few larger scale developments that have come around, and really the challenge that we tried to solve with this project was how we can like the fact that the site sits at that intersection of the lower scale contextual neighborhood and the larger scale new developments, how we can design this building which as an expression of the merging condition of that urban fabric. So our starting point was just analyzing a typical tenement building, looking at and studying the proportions of the windows, the cornices, the metal ornamentation, and then tried to use that as a starting point, but reinterpreted it sort of in a more modern way, and applied it to obviously a larger scale building. Um, we also, you might notice in some of the following renderings, we shifted the grid of the windows just to add that more, add to the dynamic character of Lower East Side. And The fact that the building was, or the site is thin and long, one of the design moves that we did was sort of break the facade and make make it appear to be two separate buildings, even though from the inside they're connected as one building. So this image kind of shows you what's existing there and what the site will look like with the two buildings um, in place. The material, we've obviously, there's so much brick all around us, so we didn't want to do something that's very glassy, and that's why we carried the same um, brick facade on our buildings. There's three types of brick that you'll see here. There's the green glaze brick, more tan colored brick, and then sort of the black brick that you see in all these recesses, again to create that visual appearance of two separate buildings. We do have metal ornamentation on each of these windows. Again, sort of learning from the character of the historic tenement buildings, which use metal as a way of design expression. Looking at the ground floor, the street level plane, obviously the idea here was to activate the street frontage. You can see all along the street we tried to minimize any back of house or services areas, creating blank walls along the street level. So we tried to design the facade with maximum amount of transparency. All the pink that you see here is the new retail that is going to be added to the neighborhood with multiple entrances um, along the street. What you see here in yellow is the main residential entry that takes you to your residential floors, and then hatched here in blue are the two MTA access points. A shot of the how the residential lobby would look like, and then this view up here is the view at the corner of Delancey and Essex Street. And then just a few view studies. This year, right now, standing on Delancey Street, looking north. And then this is just a more close-up view of the facade itself, where you can see the glazed brick panels, the staggering glazed brick panels, the ornamentation with the metal cladding, and then floor-to-ceiling windows, similar to the proportions of the historic tenement buildings that you see in the neighborhood. So I think that's all we have in the
Yeah.
presentation. I'm happy to go back to any slide or answer any questions that you all might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. When somebody members have any questions, they're made and if not, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, are the amenities in the rent or are they separate?
It- At this time, we're considering that there will be an amenity fee. We just we don't know what that will be.
Okay, and if there was an amenity fee, how would that work for the affordable units?
The amenity fee would apply to all tenants of the building if they choose to utilize it.
And as far as club, so if you were in one of the affordable units and there was a fee of $100, would that fee be $100 also for the unit, or would it be adjusted?
I believe that fee would also would be the same for all tenants.
I think.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. situation very second. I want to know about the commercial space downstairs. I want to know what's going to be. I know it's spread. Is this down on the rents or just full box? Viewers and
Well, I'm having a difficult time hearing the question.
here now.
Is there any affordability in the commercial spaces?
Oh, if for the commercial, no, the commercial space is market rate commercial.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same affordability for the amenity question. And often, I'm gonna say often in the community, the fee is afforded, is adjusted. And of concern, you know, we have a real equity problem here. And of concern, for instance, if there's a fee for the children's playroom. And it was the same fee for everybody. But you have some deeply affordable apartments there, so it's likely they wouldn't be able to afford it. So you're gonna have some kids, you're gonna have like two classes of kids. I wish you would rethink how the fees for the amenities.
Yeah.
Really appreciate if you just consider the equity issue in this community.
Sure. Yeah, we will. Yeah. Honestly, we've been focusing on obviously providing like a great amenity package, and we'll look at how to make it available to all tenants.
Yes, I mean, we appreciate the affordability, we really do.
Mhm.
Because some of the, you know, some developments, affordable apartments are for, not for really affordable people. But then we're in a situation where, you know, we're talking really low income and then charging a fee. And like I said, having two classes of use in the building. I want to say this development is very long awaited. I'm constantly getting questions about when it's gonna be developed. Because the abandoned building is kind of a blight right now. And also people are really anxious to have the elevator.
Yeah.
This is not really what you're focusing on, but do you know if the escalator will be in use? So the elevator is available, or is that gonna be gone with the maybe demolish the building? What's the?
So the discussions with MTA, obviously they brought up their desire and the need to have the escalator operational for as much and as long as possible during the project. So we're working with MTA to kind of coordinate logistics to make that happen. But you know, we have to factor in obviously safety and you know, DOB regulations. So to the extent it can be open and run in a safe manner, we will do so. But it kind of depends on construction activities and where we land with that. Once the space is handed over to the MTA, I don't really have insight into their execution of the work, and if they're going to phase, you know, try to keep the escalator running until they have the elevator. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of their strategy for that.
Okay, thank you. As I said, you know, we get a lot of questions, people have been anxious for this development. And I'm hoping that there can be, someone that we can liaison with to just to keep updated on the project. Would that be possible? Like have a name of, you know, somebody you can check in with every now and then.
Yeah, and I believe there's a representative from the development group you're in contact with regarding the overall Essex Crossing
Okay.
project. So we'll be sure to. I think there's like a check-in every few quarters or something like that. But yeah, we'll make sure that we continue to do so.
There's supposed to be. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to ask, if you could get back to us on the amenities.
On the check-in on the contact.
No, the amenities, whether you.
Oh, I'm sorry, the amenity fee. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the amenities and also just to ensure that we have proper contact information for the town residents we can speak to or whoever to give us updates or if there's an issue that, you know, a community member raises and want to address it with us. So you don't have to address that now, you just follow up with Susan. I have one final question. You have a question? So I'm gonna let July go first. Thanks, July. Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just have a statement to make and then like 3 questions for their use form. Is there a particular reason why there's an illusion of 2 buildings giving us like a two building illusion and it only be 1 building? There plans to have a different address in the future? Like what's the real purpose of having this design?
I mean, Saurabh can pick up on this, but no, there's one address here. It's 100 Essex Street. That's the residential address. I mean, the commercial will have different addresses, but for residential, it's 100 Essex. I should just add that the affordable units are distributed throughout the building. There's no concentration like on that one on like the single side, if that's the question.
Yes, I'll just add to it, like if you're inside the building, it's one single building. You will not feel that it's 2 separate buildings. There's
Yeah.
no physical separation inside the building. The only reason is purely us trying to design the building so that it fits with the neighborhood scale. As I pointed earlier, the site itself, as you can see, is a very thin and long site, and we wanted to create an expression where we break down the scale and make these look like a more standard proportion of what a single building would be. So it's purely to do with the exterior design expression and trying to align with the proportions and the scale of the neighborhood.
So the affordability is gonna be within 4 sides, right, spread out, right? Okay, no problem. In regards to amenities, I also agree, maybe you can consider outside scale. And then the other last question is, how long will it take? You guys have an estimated time.
Well, sorry, the second to last before the schedule question, what was your question?
Is that what you're asking?
How long will the build take?
Oh, just general timeline is if we can commence construction early fall this year, it'll wrap up the middle towards the latter half of 2029. And then the reason that's generally viewed as a little bit of a prolonged time period is the complexity I guess surrounding the MTA work that we're going to be doing. That scope of work is something that will take a chunk of time up in sort of the front half of the schedule. And we can't really build the rest of the building until we come out of the ground with that structure, and then we can kind of run with the normal course of the project.
Is there the affordability range, is that on the site? Or is that just remain on? Beginning, okay, no problem.
It'll be posted.
Okay.
Presentation that,
Okay, good.
sorry, there's a presentation that, Susan has, and, we'll probably put it on the website.
I think it's on the website.
Okay.
And this video will be posted tomorrow on our website also.
And then, if you don't get it, we'll make sure you get a copy.
Yeah.
Do you have other questions? Otherwise, we're going to move on.
I'm good, thank you.
Do we have any, online, that have any questions regarding this site? Okay, so my only and final question at this point is, for the commercial spaces, you mentioned that there are about 15,000
Mm-hmm.
square units of commercial space. Have you all discussed or have a sense of what kind of retail space you want it to be, or
and what you envision for the space? Are you looking to bring in one tenant that will take all the entire square footage, or do you want to break it up into multiple spaces?
Yeah. So the 15,000 square feet of commercial is currently divided into 4 separate spaces. So that's our intent right now.
Okay.
You can see there's kind of there's difficulty. Well, you could see the number one, the residential lobby cuts right through the middle of the building. So there's a limited amount of combinations that could happen here. And if you look at the south corner, that small retail store, there's a bit of a pinch point next to the MTA escalator bulkhead. So that doesn't make for a great retail combo. So we're anticipating it's probably going to be 4, but in actuality, I mean, we've sort of set this up to also provide some flexibility. So those 2 larger center spaces, if needed, those could be subdivided into 2 separate spaces for commercial. And in terms of just like target tenant, I mean, we haven't, since this is down the road quite a bit, we've had preliminary conversations with just regarding the commercial market, but obviously that could shift in the future. But we're obviously envisioning, like a retail, experiential food and beverage component here, but that's the sort of the extent that we've taken it.
Well, all I'll say about that is that in the spirit of how we're starting to develop a lot of community input and. Sorry, I just feel like I'm talking. I would say that my final comments are that in the spirit of, how this project came to be, which I worked on very, 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 very closely. And all the community input that we asked for then. And some of our concerns about, some of the retail things on the Lansing Street, some that we were losing, some that we were afraid to gain, we have a lot of food establishments, and I'm never gonna say that I would like to eat and try new things. But I think I'm encouraging you to take a look at what you think is both affordable, feasible, right, and profitable as a business. Because I know you don't want to be switching tenants every year, but match that to what is a community need for us. So we have a lot now, entertainment happening, there's a movie theater, immersive gaming, there's all those kinds of things, and that's all lovely. But we're having less and less little shops that sell other things that the community needs. And again, I'm not for any of those things. I'm just simply saying, when you get to that point, please consider what you think, what you have heard from this community from now to then about our some sort of commercial desires that we might have as well.
Mm-hmm.
Such as
Susan.
such as a normal gym. I'm serious, but that's a little crowded.
Right, so, thank you again for your presentation, this doesn't require. It's just informational, so, again, thanks for listening to us and for considering, a sliding scale. Amenities package, we ask everyone this, and it's a big thing for us listening to ensure that the units are spread across the building, that the amenities are available to everyone, and that all tenants have a very similar experience. And that's what makes us beautiful, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Very welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good.
Thank you for your presentation and your design.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you for your time.
And nobody else is raising their hand, okay, great. So we're at the final tail end of our meeting tonight, and so basically you're doing the district needs statement. And at the last couple meetings, when we talked about this, we reviewed this, we had already been explained that A lot of this is very similar to previous years. That we were waiting for new and updated stats and numbers to make the data even more, up to date and more relevant. And so a lot of that has happened. We had some, proposal on language, proposals for different things. Susan can take us through it, she usually will take us through this piece. And again, this is about, budgetary needs, it's really not about policy. It's about budgetary needs, what are the kinds of resources we need to advance the programs that are important to this district to maintain its vibrant equity and affordability. And so please.
I don't know if you can share screen, I don't sound. So I will just go through, you can see the track changes, so I'll only go through the track changes. And on the first page, the track changes are just updating the statistics for this year. So I'm not gonna go over those, it's just making them, just updating the stats. On the second page, I'm sorry, the top of the page, let's label page 3. I just put in one line that we had this sentence about our crisis of homelessness. I don't know if people are aware, but the Hope Count this year just came out and showed the highest number of people living on the streets since it started in 2005. So I just added that, that because that is the basis of our priority being which is affordable housing.
Just to get over a small typo. How are we doing?
Thank you. Then under build and preserve housing, I actually made some changes on this based on what Alistair sent in. He sent in some information about rent stabilized apartments that are remain vacant because of the cost, low rents and cost. And it was ironic, the next day, I think this city reporter came out with some stories on this with information. So first of all, on the second bullet point where it said more family sized affordable units, the reason I took that out is because it's duplicated in another part. Then I added a bullet based on Alistair's comments. I'm sorry, this first one wasn't, I just rewrote what was there. And I rewrote it in a way so it, to be able to have it be more, factual than anecdotal. And what I would like to do is, be able to quote one of our affordable housing developers on this. I think this might have come from Cooper's here. So it says affordable housing developers report unnecessary administrative and bureaucratic roadblocks in the approval process. Some of them are the largest financial costs in building new homes, which often render desirable projects financially unfeasible. So I don't want it to be just an anecdotal thing, so I'm gonna try and get Steve here or somebody to allow us to quote that, because I think it came from that's me. Then the next section, I created this hanging of preservation. And then I added, the first one was actually, we just reworded from the last statement. Expanding support and speed for community-based organizations which provide essential services to tenants dealing with termination of basic services and breaches, building code violations and avoidable evictions. And then the second part is takes in the report I read plus Alistair's comments. The city reporter reports that the rate of vacant stabilized apartments as self-reported by landlords in 2025 are on the rise. These vacancies are for various reasons. Some are vacant because landlords cannot afford the cost of repairs. One community 43 small property owner reports that 5 of these 110 stabilized apartments are vacant. Because because the regulated rent does not justify the cost of renovating the apartments. And I'll cite that as a meeting deficit.
I like the situation. Are you, is this just like an anecdote or is this offer like a preservation solution?
This is not a policy statement.
Okay.
So this is specifically not a policy.
Ask for things that result in money, resources.
But what this does is set up the need.
Okay.
This sets up the need for revenue, that we're talking about, yes, it sets up the need for that.
Oh, yeah, there's like, I saw basic source that, that this need on.
You know, like I said, so we will also, as I think probably on here, something, no, because it's the first time with the budget. I'm sorry, Sarah Gang. We have another new member who's here. So in October, along with this, we will also be voting on budget priorities. And this sets up the need for priorities we will ask for. So one of like, based on what we just read, one of the priorities is asking for baseline and expanded funding for our nonprofits who do the work with the tenants. That comes right now, the city council discretionary, the mayor's funding to be baseline from the agency. So this is setting us up for those funding. And community land trust is same as last year. I will say this administration is giving a lot more support to community land trust. But I don't think there's anything else that anybody has to change or that I would.
I mean, yeah, that's it. I remember.
So I have,
Just
just
look at the missions and then they, I really saying too, I'm trying to. And so, I mean, I think it is a good thing to ask for some support on because it is an effective loss. Of units, maybe we should be convincing about the market. Willing to like.
I did just learn this week that there is data on number of events statewide at each community board. So I would like to try and help that. I believe it's what the unit is DHCR that they can.
Oh, it's the New York colleagues, or New York State owns the community.
So I'm told I can get the information because that will let us know, is this a big deal in community board 3 or is it not? Why they have, why they would feel like community district, because it's just easy.
But they're from both states.
But they already have the data mapped out, all they gotta do is throw in the boundaries and that's not happening. So I found one of the uptown boards said, when she had something like very high percentage of her apartments, so vacant apartments to her would be very big deal. Yes, if we have very few, because we've lost so many, then it's not a big deal, because we're interested in Ward 3, we're not in this interested in the policy with all of you, so yeah. So I will try that then.
So does anybody have any questions about district needs? Do you understand, try that, and these are all recommendations for increased support that leads to, you know, resources, real resources, and set the stage for further policy changes as well. I don't have anything, I read this from time system. Are we good? Okay, so we don't have, well, I'm sorry. I have a question.
Speak into your microphone.
In regards to housing, I know for housing and I'm also for nature, guys, the need for nature at all, anything?
We don't have anything written. I will I will fund that to Damaris.
Yeah, it's not a blanket, like fund to public housing, right? It's like usually for very specific things, right? So right now, we didn't have anything very specific, but if you can think of something. That you think,
But we need to do it right now.
right, that you think, you want to ask, the city to. I don't know, like ensure that,
This is, it's showing our needs, we're not
Right.
really asking. to do
right,
it.
I mean, we can show like our finance, some of the they know, I mean. The whole, again, we can't advocate, I mean, we can and we do say little things. But we're mostly talking about this district, so in an isolated way for NYCHA, I didn't have anything specific to put forward. If you think that there's something, tell me now, because this is the last chance we have, but again, it's not like, just to put it in context and give you a guidepost. If we wouldn't be like fund all the public housing.
No, I know, I
But
understand.
Right.
I add something first before we get into this. We still haven't talked about budget priorities. And we are actually meeting with NYCHA in September. And I have put on the agenda to ask them, I have put for their capital tracker, what's funded, what's not funded. We have put questions about the funding for maintenance. So we have a lot of questions. We have questions about, I think, grants, various things. I have been asking, this is your first time, but I have been asking the board for like 3 months now. Give me any questions, give me any questions. I didn't get any, but I know from year after year, I put down a number of NYCHA things, so there will be NYCHA budget issues that we're gonna be voting.
But those are just questions that you say that you're gonna be asked.
No,
Are they gonna also be like?
so the question, I'm sorry, you guys have disadvantage of coming in at the end of the process, so I'm gonna go back a little bit to explain the process. So we have a district need, which tells the story of our community. Who we are, and what we need, what our situation is. We also will be voting for every agency. We will be voting on expense priorities, such as expense will be programs, there's staffing, that kind of thing. And we will vote, we have 25 expense priorities for the board, and we'll be voting on 40 capital. Capital in NYCHA actually, like I say, they have a tracker and they decide the priorities, and it's generally roofs come first, because if you don't do that. Everything underneath. So when I say we put questions to them. That's to give us information so that we can say, this is what we need. We know what programs, like for NYCHA, we know what programs are important, like some of the maintenance and that sort of thing. But we don't know the funding. And what we want to do is bring more money into the community, so the program's well funded. Not in danger of losing it, but probably doesn't exist with NYCHA. We're not gonna vote on more funding for that program. We're gonna take a program that's important to us, but we've lost funding. And we're gonna vote on that, will be one of our priorities. Our community ranks this as number 1, 2, 3, needing more funding. One of our questions is, what programs are being impacted by the federal government cuts? And what is being made up by the state? What is not being made up where we have gaps? So when I say questions, that's just our next step to get information. We then bring this information back to the committee. And with the capital chart tracker and that kind of thing, and we rank our needs, we vote on. And then we have a statement, every community board, we actually have a software that we have to put the statement into. And it links our district needs with the budget.
So this backs up what we put in that system, for like what we vote on and how we buy on the sides, and I guess is what it is. And in the years past, when we decided, when we know, like. you know, we said stuff like NYCHA has severe, you know, maintenance. You know, there've been a lot of reports about elevators, there was a death one year. And so, you know, there's a need to, you know, do a elevator replacements.
Oh, we forgot to do the last page of investment.
I thought that.
We do have that.
I don't have that, no.
Oh, it's not, yes, I don't have.
Oh, yeah, oh, wow, I bet.
I think, how did we not have much
I'm
on it?
thinking that, I'm thinking that you sold this and stuff.
No, and I'm saying, how did we not mention on there, but we do.
Okay, no problem. So like, if we wanted to put, it's basically to make very almost as years as we. And right, so what I'm saying to you is that there are other very specific things like. Let's say, like, I know we need pointing, we need pointers, it's not just a one.
You're not, that, this is a district needs statement.
Yeah, but a pointing in the.
No, that's not that kind of need, it's not a specific need, it's a general need. Like, we need more affordable housing, we need more, funding for, tenant organizing. We would never put in a specific construction need in the district needs.
We put in the elevator before because that was a widespread.
Yeah, so,
In multiple developments, and there were. Some deaths behind this, so we could just say that they needed to upgrade, like, do a review and upgrade. So I see what you're saying, but we wouldn't say at least or remove. No, I'm not saying that, I'm saying, let's see, if we take everything that's, how many developments, for example, are.
we
All right.
wouldn't put pointing because that's part of the overall construction. When you see the tracker, you will see how it's funded. And as a matter of fact, on our website, I believe we have last year's budget tracker under resources and under budget. And it will show you how it's done. It is not broken down that fine at all.
There's no way for us to even answer them. So, into the system, so before. There was a tracker, the one that she has to enter in that. We used to do all the questions here, it was different, but now. They've changed the system, and you can only put in what they allow you to put.
Yeah, so
You know,
I'm trying to find sort of a way. Again, it doesn't go down that specific for anything. That's just it's just too specific, but when you look at the tracker and you'll see what's funded and what's not funded. And how they describe the projects, you know, what the project scope. I think that's it, it's a much larger scope.
Okay, so here's where the improvements would be, capital improvements and repairs. All of that will fall under the.
Yes.
And there's a need for capital improvements and repairs of the NYCHA properties because there's stress, blah, 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 blah. And then, I guess once we get to once we meet with them and we have the questionnaire, then. It doesn't let you say. That's not.
We actually, we have found it's a waste of time for us to prioritize certain things. In NYCHA, because they already have their system, they already have it ranked, which we will get an updated copy of. And this is what's funded, this is what they're gonna do, this is what's not funded and needs to be funded, and we will see all that. All right, so what I think, one thing I think this is not like participatory budgeting. For participatory budgeting, don't get me wrong, you have a pot of money. And people vote on how to spend it, and they might say something like pointing or this gym or something like that. This is not like that, this is not a pot of money going for a project. This is telling an agency what programs that we want funded.
But not an amount.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Yeah, we never give up.
And but it's like, this is what we see as priorities that you should invest in fixing somehow,
From the whole agency.
right? So like with the RAD, it's like, you know, program is to provide additional resources or to ensure that there are groups that are working on it, that is transparent, the residents are being engaged. So whatever that process is, we're saying, you know, that's a need for us. We want to make sure that that is happening, and so ultimately, how do you make that happen? It's an increased resources.
And it's city money, so if something funded with federal or state. They're not asking us to prioritize, it's only the city that's asking us to prioritize. So it's very important, like when we vote on things, to know that this is city funding.
And I mean, to put in these lines, like they say, a budget line and the city council, is that somewhat?
No, so city council money is called, it's totally different, and that's discretionary money. We're only looking at money from agencies. Now, one of the things we do is we may say. Like, the city council this year gave discretionary funding for CLTs to do their planning and organizing. I am going to suggest this committee vote to ask to have that baseline in HPD. So there will no longer be a city council. I'm just going to what? I'm just. I didn't hear what you said. Oh, about the city council discretionary money. What do you think that has to be baseline? Oh, the example of what we, what? The example of what I'm gonna suggest that this be baseline is city council this past year gave discretionary funding to CLTs for organizing and planning. That means every year they have to go back to city council and beg for more money. And if it instead it's baseline in an agency, HPD, then it becomes.
Yeah, but if you're gonna do that for that, there's a lot of programs that we need to do them.
So you might decide not to.
So to me, like, I'm not gonna support baseline CLT funding when people are being evicted. And we're not baseline, you know, send a landlord money, it's not. You know, we ask all of our money comes from city council. So every year we have to apply, we have to song and dance, do whatever it takes, I'm not thinking.
Okay,
I mean, people have a big vote, but it doesn't seem fair and practical to me.
I understand what you're saying, you know, Val does a good. Not today, we will be voting on October, because we don't have all the. We don't have all the information, as I mentioned, we're gonna be meeting with agencies, we have all this information we want to get, and then that information comes back here. And then you guys will vote in October. So, I will say, there's somebody in our community that does a good job, lobbying with me at this. And that's why I said,
I'm just saying that to be fair, right, that is a new issue or a new thing that hasn't been realized. And there are real needs that I think should supersede that.
well, you might want to before the end of the day tomorrow, I think some questions, if there's something you think should be baseline, I can put that on the agency agenda.
I wanna give the part, can we somehow like add the word section 9 in there because it's all like packed. You know, and I know NYCHA, but NYCHA has section 8 apartments, but they also have like. Section 8 units, but if you say, instead of NYCHA, section 9, because there's no mention of section 9, but you got that.
Is it like just section
Action Preservation Trust.
No, but that's on,
And
that's the legislation. But we've never said, we've never referred to it like that, so.
NYCHA is section 9.
Right, yes, but no one knows that, and it's, no one
It's-
knows that.
Everybody that's supposed to knows that, this is going to NYCHA, this is going to prepare, they do.
I mean, I pick my battles. It's not about, okay, but I don't know about this, right?
I know, but I'm
my
saying
thing is,
because, you know.
like, to be honest with you, like, section 9 is being left out, and they wanna obviously eliminate it and just do that, like, everybody know that on this.
Is section 9 federal money?
Yes,
So,
but this is,
so we can't influence that.
we're not influencing it, but it should be identified as what it is, here you got Rat Pack and Trust.
You wanna put NYCHA.
I'm saying that that is a matter of opinion. That everybody does not refer to it that way, that is a relatively new term.
Section 9 is never referred to that way, I'm telling you that, I've been working on this for 30 years. We can put it, and people feel that in practice now, that it's something we can, but the units, the Section 8 units are so small now. If the argument, and I can get this for real, is that we don't know rad, pack, and it's all these different entities that you want to distinguish just those units. Separately on purpose,
I wanna make
the ones that are not in rad, that are not Section 8, that just the ones that are still regular night shift.
I would like to make sure that there's a distinction, because not even residents know that there's Section 9. And I think that is important to continue on and just like label it the way it is, so they can know that, you know, it's, yes.
I think it's important, we need to label it to make a distinction. So that makes the full section as being to all units.
So what I was gonna suggest was to just put
Just
section.
that's not.
No, I don't care, I don't mind, I'll just put it in parentheses. But I will say the people that are dealing with this document, they all know what night shift is, including night shift. Our questions and everything we do, it's the 12 boards, I didn't mention this to anyone else. It is the 12 boards, all the meetings with the agencies are the 12 Manhattan boards. And I'm gonna say, we are number 2 in night shift units. CB11 is number 1 in night shift units. They do the main thing. No one refers to it as section, they just don't, but they don't.
Oh, but it's a good term.
But that's it, but it isn't, okay, you know why?
We're already doing it, I'm just doing an explanation that none of the boards, and this is not what the city does. This is not like advocacy for tenants. This is basically for agencies, nonprofits, hospitals, they're the people that use this.
You know, some of those people, I get it, and I know,
I mean, we're putting it in, we're putting it in.
Oh, she's gonna
I
use it.
responded
No, I mean, I would like to.
But it doesn't say Section 8 in here either. They just
Well,
say
it says section.
I said,
Oh, where, we can say
Here,
so there's a difference.
Section 18, so that way people see that it's.
Sorry, guys.
so it's already
important.
done. I already have it.
All right, thank you.
It's already done. I just wanted to kind of explain the kind of the process.
And it's very right for their patients because people then don't know what's going on. And then they ask these questions and, like I know one of this is a very early meeting. Used to be at 10:00 at night. So I like to sometimes take a few extra minutes to make sure that we're all on the same page. Sure.
And this is, we have new members, this is a new process, this is a new process. I'll tell you guys, in May and June, I started every committee meeting when we talked about district needs with a long explanation of what this is and how it's used. And so it's kind of you guys are just sort of at a disadvantage because you came in at the end of the process, but you'll be ahead of time next year.
Thank you. So we roll call it, run the meeting.
I have one last question, this is back to the amenities, to people that building. Are we able to follow up with any authority over that, so I can ensure?
So there's not a authority with that, that's not one of the kinds of issue, so that's really at the discretion. But it is something that we can negotiate because as a community, we don't agree, there are street stuff. Whatever, the community board, we just that and that, like it's usually here. When that happens, because most of the times, these development type proposals, they're not always required, it's not like they have a social labor, you know what I mean? So they bring it here and then whoever comes and the committee comes. So these kinds of things are important when you ask them, and holding on to them because it's still very consistent. And I love it when we bring up the same issues, because I feel like all the developers know. And they start to come more prepared.
And this developer knows us,
Yes.
it's BLC. And the second thing is, as he mentioned, this Essex crossing is this Essex crossing is a large development. This is one of the later develop the parts of it. We do have a task force, the community board actually leads the task force, the developers on it, EPCs on it. There are some stakeholders on it, we are supposed to meet 4 times a year, and we follow up on this kind of stuff in those task forces.
But we've been dealing with a lot of access crossing stuff this year. There have been issues with this market line, the Essex, the actual market itself, with the subway, and the one in the festival entrance. And this particular one was the other side of the Essex market. And I think for a minute there, someone was phenomenal, look at this and there was lots of anything. I mean, you know, I'm glad that there's still only 25% of the units for me. And then we got that, we said the first time.
Yeah, this was planned, and the number of affordable units was planned. How many years did we spend on this? Actually was in community board 3 for how many years? About 2 years that we were. I think 2 3 years. To get us the project, the whole project itself is 50% affordable apartment.
So, right, so even if the building only has 25 at the end. When you like put it all together, the cumulative total is supposed to be 50%.
We have some all affordable.
So it was made for 60 years. So it's been one of the biggest issues that is in this community for a very long time. But here it is, if we push it, even though they know us and they still, we gotta ask them to be for. You know,
But I love the fact that we were all exactly on the same page.
sure, that's like, in regards to where it says. The community participation in next gen nitrogen and the trust public housing. Where it says, like the third sentence to the end, where it says to be increased community engagement, transparency, and nitrogen regarding this new program. To better understand how they will impact public housing stock and public housing residents in our community. Could we say fair? Maybe like add the word fair because, or maybe or option, because when I had my engagement at Beats. They gave us engagement, but it was one-sided. Was there a way we can phrase it where it's like all like equally like presents? I don't think that's the actual to say that. I mean, it's in line with providing with support and make sure that it's so let's. Yeah, where do you suggest in that? Well, we could put it in there. Which line? Where's that? Because I'm trying here, so I don't have my glasses. Community engagement and transparency connections regarding these new programs to better understand how they would impact the next resident stock. And I think that we just need to add something that says something like. Engagement and fair, meaningful engagement too, and fair should. Yeah, but also should demonstrate the 3 options. 3 options of engagement, because that's what you're saying, dictate that, I don't think you can say that.
So you're talking policy.
She's saying, so I think it's okay to say that we want to push for programming that is going to be meaningful. Like a process that will be meaningful and fair for all parties involved. I don't have a problem with it. I think that's the easiest.
That's the need.
Question is right, that's the need. What she's asking now is can we spell it out?
That's policy, that's not a need. You're saying this is how you should do it. What you wanna do, if there's some words you wanna add to emphasize
All
what
the
you
options, or all options, or maybe, equally represent all options, so they could say, well, I mean, I don't know. I think we can say that it's fair, make sure that the process is fair, meaningful, and that,
It demonstrates all
that
options.
it, not demonstrates, it,
Includes.
explains, yeah, explain all options. All options, okay, I'm not doing it, then let's have Molly write it, so we don't.
Yeah, so where do we wanna add it?
Right, it says there must be, where it says there must be increase,
Yeah, and
right, so it's the increase. Comma. Fair and their community, like, their community engagement and transparency. Including. Presenting all options. I mean, I guess. Or a process that presents all options. Right, that's what people said, yeah, process that presents all options, yes, all right. I think that's fine. State from the school. Oh, yeah, all right. They want to be looking at the screen. Oh, it's usually everyone complains that the screen's too small for the. Thanks. Very happy. Well, there's still anyone online, they could see what we're doing. Is there people online? I'm gonna conclude this, okay? So, my. Professor phone. Professor phone. This roll call. Yeah, Mars, here, speak with Charles. Bobby. Tanya. Alistair. You. Arden, not here, Michelle, not here. Here, Bob, and here, James. Sandra, not here, Sir, Sarah, Sarah,
Was I saying it right? Are we done?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ending the meeting.